We've been making judgment now on 2 hours already. Oh, no, nothing after this evening. No, we're full up. An appointment tomorrow. No, couldn't possibly. Look, I'm expecting Mr. Mayhew of Mayhew and Bristol any minute now. Yes, all right. Yes, goodbye.
Shall I make tea now, Miss Carter?
It's hardly time for tea, Greta.
It is by my watch.
Oh, then your watch is wrong.
I put it right by the radio.
Then your radio must be wrong.
Oh, no, not the radio, Miss Carter. It couldn't be wrong.
This watch belonged to my father. It never loses, nor does it gain. They don't make watches like this anymore. Oh, really, Greta, you're typing. Look here, you've left out a word. Here.
Oh, well, it's only one word. Anyone might do that.
The word that you left out is the word not, and its omission entirely alters the sense.
Does it?
It's not funny. Do it again. You may remember my telling you last week about the celebrated case of Brian Horsfall, the case of the Will and Trust Fund, that was entirely owing to a piece of careless copying by a clerk.
The wrong wife got the money. I remember.
A woman divorced 15 years previously, absolutely contrary to the intent of the tester, as his lordship himself admitted. But there was nothing he could do about it. The wording had to stand.
That's rather funny, too.
Chambers are no place to be funny in, Greta. The law is a serious business and should be treated accordingly.
Well, you wouldn't think so. Here's some of the jokes judges make.
That is the prerogative of the bench.
And I'm always reading in the paper about laughter in court.
If that's not called for one of the judge's remarks, we will soon have the court cleared.
Mean old thing. Do you know what I read the other day, Miss Carter? The law of an ass. I'm not being rude. It was a quotation.
A quotation of a facetious nature, not meant to be taken seriously. You may make the tea. And now, Greta.
Thank you, Miss Carter.
Also, Mr. Mayhew of Mayhew and Driscoll will be stopping by. Also, Mr. Leonard Bowl. They may be coming separately or together.
Leonard Bowl? That's the name what was in the paper. Asked to communicate with the police.
The tea.
And he might be able to provide them with useful
The tea.
information.
Greta, the tea.
That I was...
Greta.
Oh, the tea. Oh, Miss Carter.
Thank you. Ugh, girls nowadays, sensational, inaccurate. What is the temple coming to?
Mr. Mayhew.
Oh, good afternoon, Miss Carter.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Mayhew. Sir Wilfrid should be with you shortly, but then you never can tell with Mr. Justice Banter.
Oh, yes.
But I will go to the robing room and tell him that you are here with...
Mr. Leonard Bowl. I'm afraid our appointment was at rather short notice, but in this case, time is rather urgent. How's the lumbago?
Why, I only seem to notice it when the wind is in the east. Thank you for remembering, Mr. Mayhew.
Sit down, Mr. Bowl.
Well, thanks. I'd rather walk about a bit. This sort of thing makes you feel a bit jumpy.
Yeah, very probably.
Could I get you a cup of tea, sir?
Well, I don't mind if I do.
No, thank you.
Sorry. Well, what I mean is, I can't believe it's me this is happening to. I keep thinking that it's all a dream, and perhaps I'll wake up presently.
Yes, I suppose one might feel that way.
Well, what I mean is, well, it all seems so silly.
Silly, Mr. Bowl?
Well, yes. I mean, I've always been a pleasant sort of fellow. I get on with people and all that. I have never been the one to do anything, well, anything violent. But I mean, it will be all right, won't it? You don't get punished for things you haven't done in this country, do you?
Our English judicial system is, in my opinion, the finest in the world.
Of course, there was that case on, what was his name? Adolf Freiberger. I read about it only the other day. After he'd been in prison for a number of years, they found it was another chap called Smith. Oh, they gave him a free pardon then. Now, that's the thing that seems odd to me. Giving you a pardon for something you haven't done.
It was a necessary legal term.
Still, it doesn't seem right to me.
The important thing is that Beck was set at liberty.
Well, it was all right for him, but if he had been murdered, well, if he had been murdered, it would have been too late. He would have been hanged.
Now, Mr. Bull, there's no need to take this rather morbid point of view.
No, I'm sorry. So I'm just rather getting the wind up.
Well, try and be calm. So Wilfrid Roberts will be here shortly, and I want you to tell your story to him exactly as you told it to me.
Yes, sir.
In the meantime, we might be able to fill out a bit of the background, the tale. You are presently, I understand, out of a job.
Well, yes, I am, but I got a few quid put by. Now, it's not much, mind you, but if you could perhaps see your way clear to some sort of payment schedule or something.
Thinking of the legal fees, it's the picture I'm trying to get clear. Your situation, circumstances. How have you been unemployed?
Oh, about 2 months.
What were you doing before that?
Oh, I was working in a motor servicing firm. I was kind of a mechanic, that's what I was.
And before that?
Well, before that, I worked at a petrol station, but things got a bit awkward and I quit.
Awkward? In what way?
Oh, well, the boss's daughter, she was just a kid, but she took rather sort of a fancy to me. Well, there wasn't anything between us that shouldn't have been, but the old man got a bit fed up and said I'd better go. Oh, well, he was quite nice about it and gave me a good shit and all that. And before that, I was selling egg beaters on commission.
Indeed.
Yes, a rotten job they were, too. Could have invented a better egg beater myself. I know you're thinking I'm a bit of a drifter, sir. Perhaps in a way it's true. Well, during my army service unsettled me a bit. That and being abroad. I was in Germany. Oh yes, it was fine there. That's why I met my wife. She's an actress. I'd like you to meet her. But since I've come back to this country, I can't seem somehow to settle down properly. I don't know exactly what it is I want to do, but I like working on cars bits and figuring out the
Hello, John. Oh, Wilfred. Yes, Carter told you I was in court. Perhaps I really excelled this morning. Yes, oh, this must be Mr. Bowl.
Mr. Leonard Bowl. How do you do, sir?
How do you do, Mr. Bowl? Won't you sit down there? How's the family, John? Oh, Molly's got a touch of this 24-hour flu. Oh, too bad.
Damnable.
Did you win your case, Wilfred? Yes, I'm glad to say.
Oh, it always gives you satisfaction to beat Myers, doesn't it?
Gives me satisfaction to beat anyone.
Oh, but especially Myers.
Especially Myers. He's such an irritating gentleman. He always seems to bring out the worst in me.
That seems to be mutual. You irritate him by hardly ever letting him finish a sentence.
He irritates me because of that mannerism of his. His constant drives me to distraction. Oh yes, and he will call me Robarts. Robarts. But he is a very able advocate. If only he would remember not to ask leading questions when he knows damn well he shouldn't. Let's get down to business.
Oh, yes. I brought forward because I was anxious for you to tell you his story exactly as he told it to me. There seems to be some urgency in the matter.
Oh?
Well, yes. My wife seems to think I'm going to be arrested. Well, she's much cleverer than I am, so she may be right.
Arrested for what?
Well, for murder.
It's the case of Miss Emily French. You may have heard reports in the press. Yes. She was an elder, a maiden lady living alone, staying for an elderly housekeeper in a house at Hampstead. On the night of October the 14th at 11 p.m., the housekeeper came home to find that the place had been apparently broken into, and the mistress had been coshed on the back of the head and killed. Say, that is right?
Oh, yes, that's right. It's quite an ordinary sort of thing to happen nowadays. And then I read in the paper that the police were anxious to interview Mr. Leonard Bowl, who had visited Miss French earlier on the evening in question, as he might be able to provide some useful information. So I went along to the police station and they asked me lots of questions.
Did they caution you?
Well, I don't quite know. They said, would I like to make a statement? They'd write it down and it might be used in court. Does that caution me?
No, it can't be helped now.
Anyway, it sounded damn silly to me. I told them all I could, and they were very polite and seemed quite satisfied. And then, after I got home and told Romaine about it, my wife, that is, well, she got the wind up and seemed to think that they got hold of the idea that I might have done it. So I thought perhaps I ought to get hold of a solicitor, so I came along to you. I thought you might be able to tell me what I ought to do about it.
Now, you knew this Miss French well.
Oh, yes. She'd been frightfully kind to me. Actually, it was a bit of a bore sometimes. She positively fussed over me. Well, she meant very well and all that. But then I read in the paper that she'd been killed and I got awfully upset. You see, I got rather fond of her.
Tell Sir Wilfred, as you told me, exactly how you came to meet Miss French.
Well, it was one day on Oxford Street. I saw this old lady crossing the road carrying lots of parcels, and then right in the middle of the street, she dropped the parcels right in the mud. Well, she bent down to pick them up again, and found the bus was almost on top of her. Well, she just managed to get to the curb safely. Well, I went into the street and picked up the parcels and brushed them off of them as best I could, and tied up one again that had broken open the string, and just generally soothed the old dear down, that sort of thing.
Never she was grateful.
Oh, yes, she seemed very grateful. Well, she she thanked me a lot and all that. You'd think I just saved her life instead of apostles.
But there was no question of you actually having saved her.
Oh, no, nothing heroic. I never expected to see her again.
Yes, I see. Oh, evidently.
Oh, yes, thank you. But by an extraordinary coincidence, 2 days later, I happened to be sitting behind in the theater. Well, she looked around and noticed me, and we started to talk. And in the end, she asked me to come round and see her.
And you did go to see her?
Yes, she asked me to name a day specially, and it seemed rather churlish to refuse, so I went along the following Saturday.
So you went to her house at...
Hampstead.
Hampstead.
Yes.
Yes. Now, what did you know about Miss French before you went to her house?
Well, nothing really, except what she told me, that she lived alone and hadn't very many friends.
She lived only with a housekeeper.
Yes, but she kept 8 cats, though. 8 of them. Well, the house was beautifully furnished and all that, but it smelt a bit of cat.
Yes. Now, had you any reason to believe that she was well off?
Well, she talked as though she was.
And you yourself?
I'm practically stone broke and have been for some time.
Unfortunate.
Yes, it is, Robert. Oh, you mean people will think I was sucking up to her for her money?
Well, I shouldn't have put it quite like that, but yes, in essence, that's possibly what people might say.
Well, it isn't really true, you know. As a matter of fact, I felt sorry for her. I thought she was lonely, and I'm rather fond of old lady, as I was brought up by an old aunt, my Aunt Betsy.
Yes, now you say old ladies. Do you know how old Miss French was?
Well, I didn't know, but I read it in the paper. She was 56.
56? Well, you may consider that old, Mr. Bull. However, I doubt that Miss Emily French considered herself old.
Well, you can't call it a chicken now, can you?
Well, now, shall we go on? Now, you went to see this Mrs. French fairly frequently.
Oh, yes, I should say once or twice a week, perhaps.
Now, did you take your wife with you?
Well, no. No, I didn't.
Well, why didn't you?
Well, frankly, I don't think it would have gone down very well if I had.
You mean with your wife or with Miss French?
Oh, with Miss French.
Go on, go on.
Well, you see, she got rather fond of me.
You mean she fell in love with you?
Oh, good Lord, no. I mean, she just pampered me and spoiled me, that sort of thing.
Well, Mr. Bull, I have no doubt that part of the police case against you, if there is a case against you, which, as of right now, we have no definite reason to suppose would be why you, young, good-looking, married, devoted so much time to a middle-aged woman with whom you could hardly have very much in common.
Well, I suppose they'll say I was after her for her money, and in a way, perhaps it's true, but only in a way.
Well, you're very frank, Mr. Bull. Could you explain a little more clearly?
Well, she made no secret of the fact that she was rolling in money, and as I told you, Romaine and I, that's my wife, are pretty hard up. Well, I'll admit that I'll admit that I hope that if I was in a bit of a tight spot, that she'd loan me some money. Well, I'm being honest about it.
Did you ask her for a loan?
Well, no, I didn't. I mean, things went delicate. Of course, I can see it does look rather bad, doesn't it?
Yes. Now, Miss French knew you were a married man.
Yes.
But she never suggested that you bring your wife to see her?
No.
Did you...
I think she somehow formed the opinion that we didn't get on.
Well, did you deliberately give her that impression?
Well, no, I didn't. I mean, indeed I didn't. But she seemed to, well, assume it. I thought perhaps if I kept dragging Romaine into it, she'd lose interest in me. Well, you see, I didn't want to exactly cadge money from her, but I'd invented a new kind of gadget for a car. Really good idea it is, too. And I was hoping that she might finance that for me. Well, it would have been her money, but it would have brought her in a lot. Well, it's very difficult to explain, but I wasn't sponging on her, Sir Wilfrid. Really, I wasn't.
Now, what sums of money did you obtain at any time from Miss French?
None.
I see. Now, tell me about this housekeeper.
Janet Mckenzie? Huh. A regular old tyrant, Janet was. She barely bullied poor Miss French. Well, she looked after her very well and all that, but the poor old dear couldn't call her soul her own when Janet was about. Janet didn't like me at all.
Why didn't she like you?
Oh, jealous, I expect. She didn't like me helping Miss French with her business affairs.
So, you helped Miss French with her business affairs?
Oh, yes. Well, she was worried about her investments and things like that, and had a bit of trouble filling up tax forms and all that sort of thing, and I just sort of helped her with a lot of things like that.
I would ask you a very serious question, Mr. Ball, and it's one to which it's vital that I have a truthful answer. Now, you were in low water financially. You had the handling of this woman's affairs. Now, at any time, did you convert to your own use any of the securities that you had? Now, wait a minute, Mr. Ball, before you answer, because there are 2 points of view. Either we can make a feature of your honesty and probity, or if you did swindle this woman in any way, we shall have to follow the line that you had no motive for murder, since you already had a profitable source of income. Now, as you can see, there are advantages to either point of view. What I want is the truth. Take your time, if you like, before you reply.
I assure you, Sir Wilfrid, that I played dead straight with you, and you won't find anything to the contrary. Dead straight.
I pay you the compliment of believing that you are far too intelligent to lie on such a vital matter. Now, this brings us to the night of October the 14th. October the 14th, yes. Now, did Miss French ask you to call that evening?
Well, as a matter of fact, she didn't. But I came across a new kind of gadget, a new thing in that line. I thought it would please her, so I took it along that evening. Slipped up there about quarter to 8, and I knew it was Janet Mckenzie's night out, and I thought Miss French would be alone, and I'd be rather lonely.
It was Janet Mckenzie's night out, and you were aware of that fact?
Oh, yes, Janet always went out on a Friday.
That's not quite so good.
Well, why not? I mean, it seems perfectly natural that I should choose that evening to go and see her.
Go on, Mr. Ball.
Well, I got her about quarter to 8. Now, she'd already finished her supper, so I had a cup of coffee with her. And then we played a game of Double Demon, and after that I said goodbye to her home.
Now, you told me the housekeeper said she came home earlier that night than usual.
Well, yes. The police said that Janet had come back to get something that she had forgotten. And then while she was there, she heard, or she said she heard, someone speaking with Miss French. Well, whoever it wasn't me.
Can you prove that, Mr. Ball?
Well, of course I can prove it. I was at home again with my wife by then. I mean, that's what the police kept asking me, where I was at 9:30. Well, normally one would know where one was. But as it happens, I remember quite well that I'd gone straight on the Romaine and hadn't gone out again.
You live in a flat?
Yes, we have a tiny maisonette above the shop behind Euston Station.
Did anyone see you returning to your flat?
Well, I don't suppose so. Why should they?
It would be quite an advantage if they had.
Well, but surely you don't think. I mean, if Miss French were killed at 9:30, my wife's evidence is all I need, isn't it?
Your wife will say definitely that you were at home at that time?
Of course she will.
You were very fond of your wife, and your wife is very fond of you.
Romaine is absolutely devoted to me. She's the most devoted wife any man could have.
I see. You are happily married.
Oh, I couldn't be happier. Romaine's wonderful. She's simply wonderful, Mr. Mayhew. I'd like you to know her.
Yes, come in.
The evening paper, Sir Wilfrid.
Oh, thank you, Rita.
Can I get you a cup of tea, sir?
No, thank you, Rita. Look, would you care for a cup, Mr. Bow?
No, thank you, sir.
No, thank you, Rita.
I think it would be advisable to have a meeting with your wife.
Oh, you mean have a regular round table conference with her?
Wonderful. You are taking this matter quite seriously enough.
Well, I am. Really, I am. But, well, I mean, it all seems so much like a bad dream. I mean, that should be happening to me. Well, I mean, murder, it's something you read about in books or newspapers, but it's nothing that you think can touch you or harm you in any way. Well, I suppose that's why I keep making a joke of it, but it isn't a joke, really.
No, I'm afraid it's not a joke.
But, I mean, it will be all right, won't it? I mean, if they think Miss French were killed at 9:30 and I was at home with Romaine.
How did you get home that night? By bus or underground?
Oh, I walked.
Did you see anyone you knew on the way home?
Well, I don't. Well, no, but does it matter? I mean, Romaine.
The evidence of the devoted wife, unsupported by any other evidence, may not be completely convincing, Mr. Bow.
Oh, you mean they think Romaine would tell a lie on my account?
Well, it has been known, Mr. Bow.
Well, I'm sure she would too, only in this case it won't be a lie. I mean, it really is the truth. Well, you do believe me, don't you?
Yes, I believe you, but it is not me that you shall have to convince. You are aware that Miss French left a will, leaving you all her money.
Left all her money to me? Well, you must be joking.
I'm not joking. It's right here in tonight's evening paper.
Well, I can hardly believe it.
You know nothing about this.
Absolutely nothing. She never said a word.
Are you sure of that, Mr. Ball?
Oh, absolutely sure. Well, of course, I'm very grateful to her, but I'd rather wish now that she hadn't. It's a bit unfortunate as things are, isn't it?
Yes, it supplies you with a very adequate motive for murder, if you knew about it, which you said you didn't. Now, Miss French never talked to you about his will.
Well, I remember her saying to Janet once, "You're afraid I shall change my will again," but that had nothing to do with me. That was just a bit of a dust-up between them. Well, do you really think I'm going to be arrested?
And I think, Mr. Bow, that you should prepare yourself for that eventuality.
Well, you'll do the best you can for me, won't you?
Don't worry, my boy. I will do everything in my power to see that you're taken care of. Now, just leave everything in my hands and don't worry.
Well, you look after Romaine, won't you? I mean, she'll be in a terrible state. The things this will be awful for her.
Don't worry, my boy. Don't worry.
Of course, there's the money, too. That worries me also. I've only got a few quid. Perhaps I should have asked you to do anything for me.
I think we shall be able to put up adequate defense. The court makes provisions for these cases, you know.
Well, I can't believe it. I can't believe that I, then involved, may be standing in a dock saying not guilty. I mean, all those people staring at me. I mean, I don't see why they don't think it was a burglar. How apparently the window was forced and smashed and lots of things were strewn around. That seems seems much more probable to me.
The police probably have good reason for not thinking with the
Oh,
person.
yes, Carter.
Excuse me, Sir Wilfrid, but there are two gentlemen outside asking to see you. They said that it has something to do with Mr. Melville.
The police?
Yes, sir.
All right, John, I'll talk to them.
My God, is this it?
I'm afraid it may be, my boy. Now, take it easy, don't lose heart. Say no more.
Leave the rest to us.
But how do they know I'm here?
It seems probable that they've had a man watching you.
Oh, then they really do suspect me.
I'm Sergeant John, you said?
No trouble at all, Inspector. This is Mr. Vole.
Is your name Leonard Bow?
Yes, it is.
I'm Detective Inspector Hearn. I have here a warrant for your arrest on the charge of killing Miss Emily French on October 14th of last. Must warn you that anything you say may be taken down and used in evidence.
Okay, I'm ready.
Good afternoon, Inspector Hearn. My name is Mayhew. I'm representing Mr. Ball.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayhew. Sir, my detective is waiting in the other room. Lieutenant? That's quite all right, gentlemen. We'll be taking him along and charging him now. Very seasonable weather we've been having just now. Quite enough for the frost last night, sir, wouldn't you say? We'll be seeing you later, sir, I expect, and I hope we haven't inconvenienced you, Sir Will.
I've never inconvenienced, Inspector. I must say, John, that young man is a far worse best than he seems to think.
He certainly is.
Well, what do you make of him? Well, he's extraordinarily naive. Yet in some ways quite shrewd, intelligent, I should think, but he certainly doesn't realize the danger of his position.
Do you think he did it?
I have no idea. On the whole, I would say not. Do you agree?
I agree.
Well, he seems to have made a favorable impression on the both of us. I can't think why. I've never heard a weaker story. Gosh knows what we're going to do with it. You know, the only evidence in his favor seems to be the evidence of his wife. And who's going to believe a wife?
It has been known to happen.
Yes, and she's a foreigner, too. 9 out of 12 in the jury box. I think that a foreigner is lying anyway. Oh, she'll be upset and emotional. She won't understand what the prosecuting counsel says to her. Still, we have to interview her. Oh, you'll see. She'll have hysterics all over my chamber.
Perhaps you prefer not to accept the brief.
Who says I won't accept the brief? Just because I point out that the boy has a pound-full story to tell.
But a true one.
Yes, it must be true. It would be so idiotic if it wasn't true. Huh. You know, when you put everything down in black and white, John, it's utterly damn. Oh, and that when you talk to the boy and he blurts out those damning facts, you have to realize that it could have happened exactly the way he said. Damn it all. I had the equipment in Aunt Betsy, and I love the old girl dearly.
He has a good personality, it seems. Sympathetic.
Yes, that should go down good with the jury. Cuts no ice with the judge, though. Then, of course, he's the simple sort of chap who might get easily rattled in the box. An awful lot depends on that girl. Yes, come in.
Mrs. Leonard Bowl is here.
Mrs. Bowl?
Come here. You saw that young man. He's just been arrested for murder.
I know. Isn't it exciting?
You think he did it?
No, sir, I'm sure he didn't do it.
Why not?
Oh, because he's far too nice.
That makes 3 of us. Bring Mrs. Bowl in. We're probably 3 credulous fools being taken in by a young man with a pleasing personality.
Mrs. Bowles, sir.
My dear Mrs. Bowl.
Ah, you are Mr. Mayhew.
Yeah, this is Wilfrid Roberts who has agreed to take on your husband's case for you.
How do you do, Sir
How
Wilfrid?
do you do, Mrs. Bowl?
I have just come from your office, Mr. Mayhew. They told me you were here with my husband.
Yes, quite.
Just as I arrived, I thought I saw Leonard getting into a car. Never too mentored him.
Now, my dear Mrs. Bull, please don't upset yourself. Won't you sit down over here?
Thank you.
As if there is nothing to be alarmed about, so please do not give way.
Oh, no, I shall not give way.
Then let me tell you that your husband, as you probably already suspect, has been arrested.
For the murder of Miss Emily French.
I'm afraid so, yes, but please don't be upset.
You keep saying that, Sir Wilfrid, but, I'm not upset.
No, I can see that you have great fortitude.
You can call it that if you like.
Yes, the great thing here is to remain calm and tackle this all sensibly.
That suits me very well. But you must not hide anything from me, Sir Wilfrid. You must not try and spare me. I want to know everything. I want to know, the worst.
Splendid, splendid. That's the right way to tackle this thing. And now, dear lady, we are not going to give way to alarm and despondency. We are going to look at this thing in a sensible, straightforward manner. Now then, I became friendly with Miss French about 6 weeks ago. You were aware of that friendship, were you not?
He told me that he had rescued an old lady on her parcels one day in the middle of a crowded street. He told me that she had asked him to go and see her.
Yes, all quite natural, I think, and he did go to see her.
Yes,
And they became great friends.
evidently.
There was never any question of you accompanying your husband on any occasion.
Leonard thought it better not.
He thought it better not. Yes, just between ourselves, Mrs. Vole, why did he think it better not?
He thought his friends would prefer it that way.
Yes, well, we can go into that another time. After your husband became friendly with Miss French, he did her various little services. She was a lonely old woman with time on her hands, and your husband's companionship seemed very congenial to her.
Leonard can be very charming.
No, I'm sure he can, and no doubt he felt that it was a kindly act on his part to go and cheer up your baby.
I dare say.
You yourself had no objections to this friendship.
I do not think I objected, no.
No, of course, of course. You had perfect trust in your husband, knowing him as you do.
Oh, yes, I know Leonard very well.
Yes. Well, I can't help but admire your calm and courage in this, Mrs. Vole, knowing how devoted you are to him.
So, you know how devoted I am to him.
Oh, of course.
But excuse me, I'm a foreigner. I do not always know your English terms, but is there not a saying about knowing something of your own knowledge? You do not know that I'm devoted to Leonard of your own knowledge. Do you, Sir Wilfrid?
Well, no, of course, that is true. But what your husband told me.
Leonard told you how devoted I was to him.
Indeed, he spoke of your devotion in the most moving terms.
Men, I often think, are very stupid.
I beg your pardon.
Oh, it does not matter. Please, go on.
Well, this Miss French was a woman of considerable wealth with no near relations. Like many eccentric elderly ladies, she was fond of making out wills. She had made out several in her lifetime. Now, shortly after meeting your husband, she made a fresh one. And after a few small bequests, she left the whole of her fortune to your husband.
Yes,
You know that?
I read it in the paper this evening.
Quite. Now, before reading it in the paper, had you any idea of the fact? Had your husband any idea of it?
Is that what he told you?
Yes, you don't suggest anything different.
No. Oh, no, I do not suggest anything.
Well, I have no doubt that Miss French looked on your husband rather in the light of a son or perhaps a favorite nephew.
You think Miss French looked upon Leonard as a son?
Yes, I think so. I definitely think so. All quite natural, normal, under the circumstances.
What hypocrites you are in this country.
My dear Mrs. Vole!
Oh, I shocked you. I'm so sorry.
Of course, you have a very continental way of looking at these things, but I assure you, Mrs. Vole, this is not the line to take. It would be very unwise to suggest that Miss French had any feelings for your husband under the nose of a mother or perhaps, shall we say, an aunt.
Oh, by all means, let us say an aunt if you think it best.
So we have to think of the effect on the jury of all these things.
Yes, I also wish to do that. I have been thinking of that a good deal.
Yes. Good. Now, we have to work together on this. This brings us to the night of October the 14th. That was just a little over a week ago. Now, you remember that evening, perhaps?
I remember it very well.
Leonard Roll called on Miss French that evening. Janet Mckenzie, the housekeeper, was out. Leonard played a game of double demon with Miss French and finally took leave of her about 9 o'clock. He returned home on 40 dozen, arriving at approximately 9:25.
9:25.
At 9:30, the housekeeper returned to get something she had forgotten. In passing the sitting room door, she heard a man in conversation with Miss French. She assumed that that man was Leonard Vole. Inspector Hearn says that it is this statement of hers that has led to your husband's arrest. However, Mr. Vole says he has the perfect alibi for that hour because he was home with you at 9:30. That is true, is it not? He was home with you at 9:30.
Is that what he told you, that he was with me at 9:30?
Isn't it true?
But of course.
Possibly the police have already questioned you on this point.
Oh, yes, they came to see me yesterday evening.
And you said?
I said Leonard came in at 25 minutes past 9 and did not go out again.
You said.
That was right, was it
What
not?
do you mean by that, Mrs. Vaux?
That is what Leonard wants me to say, is it not?
It's the truth. You said so just now.
I have to understand, to be sure. If I say yes, it is so. Leonard was with me in the flat at 9:30. Will they acquit him? Will they let him go?
Well, if you're both telling the truth, well, of course they will have to agree.
But when I said that to the police, I do not think they believed me.
Well, what makes you think they didn't believe you?
Perhaps I did not say it very well.
Mrs. Vaux, I really don't understand your attitude in all this.
So you don't understand. Well, perhaps it is difficult.
Perhaps your husband's position is not quite with you.
I have already told you that I want to understand fully just how black the case against my husband is. I say to the police, Leonard was with me at 9:30, and they do not believe me. But perhaps there is someone who saw him leave Miss French's house, or who saw him in the street on his way home.
Now, your husband cannot remember or think of anything helpful of that nature.
So, it will only be his word and mine. Mine. Thank you. That is what I wanted to know.
Oh, please don't go, Miss Vaux. There's much more to be discussed.
Not by me.
But why not, Mrs. Vaux?
I shall have to swear, shall I not, to speak the truth, and all the truth, and nothing but the truth?
That is the oath you take.
And suppose that then, when you ask me, when did Leonard Bowl come home that night, I should say,
Well,
there are so many things I could say.
Mrs. Vaux, do you love your husband?
Leonard says I do,
Leonard all believes you do.
but Leonard is not very clever.
You are aware, Mrs. Vaux, that by law you cannot be called to give testimony damaging to your husband.
How very convenient.
Because your husband cannot
He
be
is
called
not
to give
my
testimony
husband.
to- What?
Leonard Bowl is not my husband. He went to a form of marriage with me in Berlin. He got me out of the Russian zone and brought me to this country. I did not tell him that, I had a husband living at the time.
He got you out of the Russian sector and saved you to this country. You should be very grateful to him, are you?
One can get tired of gratitude.
Has Leonard Vaux ever injured you in any way?
Let's injure me. He worships the ground I walk on.
And you?
You want to know too much.
Just a moment. There are some things we must get quite clear. Your statement thus far has been somewhat ambiguous. What exactly happened on the evening of October the 14th?
Leonard came in at 25 minutes past 9 and did not go out again. I have given him an alibi, have I not?
You have. Mrs. Vaux,
Yes.
you are a very remarkable woman, Mrs. Vaux.
And you are satisfied, I hope?
I'm damned if I'm satisfied.
Nor I.
She's up to something, John, but what? Tell me that.
Well, she surely doesn't have hysterics all over the place.
Cool as a cucumber.
What will happen if we put him in the witness box?
Oh, God knows.
God, the prosecution will bring it down in no time. Especially with Myers.
Well, if it's not the Attorney General, it probably will
What
be.
will be your line of attack?
Oh, the usual. Keep interrupting. You know, as many objections as possible.
You know what beats me is a young bull has complete trust in her.
Well, don't put your trust in that, John. Any woman can fool a man if she wants to. And he's in love with her.
Oh, he's in love with her, all right. And he trusts her completely.
More fool he. Never trust a woman.
Leonard Bowl, you are charged on indictment for that you on the 14th day of October in the county of London murdered Emily Jane French. How say you, Leonard Bowl? Are you guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Members of the jury, the prisoner stands indicted for that he on the 14th day of October murdered Emily Jane French. To this indictment he has pleaded not guilty. And it is your charge to say, having heard the evidence, whether he be guilty or not.
One moment, Mr. Myers. Members of the jury, the proper time for me to sum up the evidence to you and instruct you as to the law is after you have heard all the evidence. But because there has been a considerable amount of publicity about this case in the press, I should just like to say this to you now. By the oaths which each of you has just taken, you swore to try this case on the evidence. That is, on the evidence you are now going to hear and see. That does not mean you are to consider also anything you may have heard or read prior to taking your oaths. You must shut out from your minds everything except what takes place in this court. You must not let anything else influence your minds in favor of or against the prisoner. I'm sure each of you will do your duty conscientiously in the manner in which I have indicated. Yes, Mr. Myers.
May it please you, my lord. Members of the jury, I shall be representing the prosecution in this case, and my learned friend, Sir Wilfrid Robarts, shall be representing the defense. This is a case of murder. The facts are simple enough to a certain point, not in dispute. You will hear how the prisoner, a young and you may think not unattractive man, made the acquaintance of one Miss Emily French, a woman of 56. How he was treated by her with kindness and even affection. Nature of that affection you will have to discover for yourself. Dr. Wyatt will tell you that, in his opinion, death occurred between 9:30 and 10 p.m. on the 14th of October last. You'll hear evidence of Janet Mckenzie, who was Miss French's faithful and devoted housekeeper. 14th of October. It was a Friday. And it was Janet Mackenzie's night out, but on this occasion she happened to return for a few minutes at 25 minutes past 9. She let herself in with a key, and upon going upstairs to her room, she passed the door of the sitting room. She will tell you that as she passed the door of the sitting room, she heard the voices of Miss French and of the prisoner Leonard Bolt.
That's not true. It wasn't me.
Miss Mckenzie was surprised, since Miss French had not expected Leonard Bolt to call that evening. However, she went out again, and when she returned at 11 p.m. found Miss French murdered, the room in disorder, the curtains blowing wildly. Horrified, she immediately rang up the police. I should tell you that the prisoner was arrested on the 20th of October. It is the case for the prosecution that Emily Jane French was murdered between 9:30 and 10 p.m. on the 14th of October last by a blow from a corch, and that the blow was struck by the prisoner. I shall now call Inspector Hearn.
Always swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Robert Hand, Detective Inspector, Criminal Investigation Department, New Scotland Yard.
Now, Inspector Hearn, were you on duty on the 14th of October last when you received an emergency call?
Yes, sir, I was.
And what did you do?
With Sergeant Randall, I proceeded to 23 Ashburn Grove. I was admitted to the house and established that the occupant, whom I later ascertained as Miss Emily French, was dead. She was lying on her face. There had been an attempt to force one of the windows with some implement that might have been a chisel. The window was broken near the catch. There was glass strewn all about the floor, and I also later found fragments of glass in the ground outside the window.
Is there any particular significance in finding glass both inside and outside the window?
No, sir, the glass outside was not consistent with the window having been forced from the outside.
You mean that if it had been forced from the inside, there had been an attempt to make it look as though it had been done from the outside?
I object. My learned friend is putting words into the witness's mouth. He really must observe the rules of evidence.
Inspector, you have been engaged on several cases of burglary and housebreaking.
Yes, sir, I have.
And in your experience, when a window is forced from the outside, where's the glass?
On the inside, sir.
And in any other case where the window has been forced from the outside, have you found glass outside the window some distance below on the ground?
No, sir.
No. Will you go on?
A search was made, fingerprints were taken, also photographs in place, sir.
What fingerprints did you discover?
Those of Miss Emily true later to be those of the prisoner, Mr. Leonard Vole.
No others?
No others?
And did you subsequently have an interview with Mr. Leonard Hall?
Yes, sir, I did. Johnny Mckenzie was unable to give me his address, but as a result of a broadcast and a newspaper appeal, Mr. Leonard Vole came and saw me.
And on October 20th, when arrested, what did the prisoner say?
He replied, "Okay, I'm ready."
Now, Inspector, you say the room had the appearance of robbery having been committed.
That is just what the inspector did not say. If your lordship remembers, it was a suggestion made by my friend, quite improperly made, to which I object.
You're quite right, Sir Wilfred. At the same time, I'm not sure that the inspector is not entitled to give evidence of any facts which may tend to prove that the disorder of the room was not the work of a person who broke from the outside for the purpose of robbery.
Your lord, I respectfully agree with what your lordship has said. Facts, yes, but not the mere expression of opinion without the facts on which it is based.
Perhaps, my lord, if I phrase my question in this way, my friend would be satisfied. Inspector, could you say from what you saw whether the hatter had not been a bona fide breaking in from outside?
Oh, my lord, I must continue my objection. My learned friend is again seeking to obtain an opinion from this witness.
Yes, Mr. Miles, I think we'll have to do a little better than that.
Inspector, did you find anything inconsistent with the breaking in from outside?
Only the glass, sir.
Nothing else?
No, sir, there was nothing else.
We all seem to have drawn a blank there, Mr. Miles.
Yes, my lord. Was Miss French wearing jewelry of any value?
Yes, sir, she was. She was wearing a diamond brooch, 2 diamond rings, value of, I'd say, about 1,500 pounds.
And these were left untouched?
Yes, sir.
Was in fact anything taken?
Now, according to Janet Mckenzie, nothing was missing.
And in your experience, when anyone breaks into a house, do they leave without taking anything?
Not unless they're interrupted, sir.
But it does not look in this case as if the burglar was interrupted.
No, sir.
You produce a jacket, Inspector?
Yes, sir, I do.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
And from where did you get it?
I found it at the prisoner's flat, sir, sometime after he was arrested. Handed it to Mr. Clay in the lab to be tested for possible bloodstains.
Lastly, Inspector, do you produce a will?
Yes, sir, I do.
Dated October the 8th.
That's correct, sir.
Not a certain request. The residue is left to the prisoner.
Yes, sir.
And what is the net value of that estate?
It will be, sir, as far as can be ascertained at the moment, about 400,000 pounds.
Thank you.
Now then, Inspector, you say that the only fingerprints you found in the room are those of Miss French herself, the prisoner Leonard Vole, and Janet Mckenzie, the housekeeper. Now, in your experience, when a burglar breaks in, does he usually leave fingerprints or does he let them?
He wears gloves, sir.
Invariably.
Almost invariably.
And so that the absence of fingerprints in a case of robbery would hardly surprise you.
No, sir.
Now, as for these chisel marks on the window, were they on the inside or the outside of the casement?
On the outside, sir.
Now, would that not be consistent and only consistent with breaking in from the outside?
Well, he could have went out of the house afterwards to have done that, sir, or he could have made the marks from the inside.
From the inside, Inspector, how could he have possibly done that?
Yes, sir. You see, there are 2 windows together there, and with their casements adjacent, it would be easy for anyone in the room to open one of the windows, lean out, and force the catch of the other.
Now, did you find any chisel near the premises or at the prisoner's flat?
Yes, sir. At the prisoner's flat.
Oh,
But they didn't fit the marks on the window.
I see. Now, it was a windy night on October the 14th, was it not?
I really can't remember, sir.
According to my learned friend, he said that Janet Mckenzie saw the curtains blowing in the wind. Perhaps you noticed that fact yourself?
Well, yes, sir. They did blow about.
Indicating that it was a windy night. So let us suppose that if a burglar had broken in from the outside and pushed the window back, some of the loose glass might have easily fallen outside the window being blown back violently by the wind. Now that is possible, is it not?
Yes, sir, that's possible.
Now, we are all unhappily aware that crimes of violence are much on the increase lately. You would agree to that?
Yes, it is a little above normal, sir.
So let us take the case that some young thugs have broken in, meaning to attack Miss French and steal. It is possible that one of them, having crushed her on the back of the head and found her dead, they gave way to panic, left without taking anything. Or they may have been looking only for money and been afraid to touch anything in the nature of jewelry.
I submit that it is impossible for Inspector Hearn to guess at what went on in the minds of some entirely hypothetical young criminals who may not even exist.
Inspector, it is true that the prisoner came forward of his own accord and gave his statement quite willingly.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And at all times the prisoner has protested his innocence.
Yes, sir?
Inspector, there is a knife on the table there. Will you kindly examine it? You have seen this knife before?
I may have?
This knife came from the kitchen table of Mr. Bull's flat, and it was brought to your attention by his wife on the occasion of your first interview with her.
My lord, to save the time of the court, may I say we accept the knife as being a knife in the possession of Leonard Bull and shown to the inspector by Mrs. Bull.
Is that correct, Inspector?
Yes, sir.
It is, I believe, what I call a French vegetable knife.
I believe so, sir.
Now, would you test the edge with your finger carefully? Now, you will agree that the cutting edge and the point are razor sharp.
Yes, sir.
And if you were cutting ham, carving it, say, and your hand slipped with this knife, it would be capable of inflicting a very nasty cut, one which would bleed profusely.
I object. It is a matter of opinion, and medical opinion at that.
I withdraw the question. Let me ask you this instead, Inspector. If, when the prisoner was being questioned by you as to the stains on his jacket, did he not draw your attention to a recently healed scar on his wrist and tell you that he had cut his wrist while he was slicing hair?
And that is what he said, sir.
Now, his wife told you the very same story.
From the first time, sir.
Now, a simple yes or no, please. Did his wife show you this knife and tell you that her husband had cut his wrist with it while slicing hair?
That is what she said, sir.
Thank you, Inspector.
What first drew your attention to that jacket, Inspector?
Sir, the sleeve appeared to have been recently washed.
Yes, and you were told this story about an accident with a kitchen knife?
Yes, sir?
And your attention was drawn to the scar on the prisoner's wrist.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Now, granted that that scar was caused by that particular knife, there was nothing to show whether it was an accident or had been done deliberately.
Hey, my lord, I must object, my learned friend. If he's going to answer his own questions, I mean, the presence of this witness seems to be superfluous.
I withdraw the question. Thank you, Inspector. Dr. Wyatt? Dr. Wyatt?
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Dr. Wyatt?
Yes,
You are the police surgeon for the Hampstead Division?
yes.
Now, Dr. Wyatt, will you kindly tell the jury in your own words what you know regarding the death of Miss Emily French?
At 11 p.m. on October 14th, I saw the dead body of the woman who subsequently proved to be Miss French. By examining of the body, I was of the opinion that death was a result from a blow on the head delivered from an object such as a coin. Death would have been practically instantaneous. From the temperature of the body and other factors, I placed the time of death no less than, say, 1 hour previously and no more than an hour and a half. That is to say, between the hours of 9:30 and 10 p.m.
Now, had Miss French struggled with her adversary at all?
Well, there was no evidence that she had done so, but on the contrary, she was taken quite unprepared.
Doctor, where exactly on the head had this blow been struck? There was only one blow struck, was there not?
Only one on the left side of the stereo.
I beg your pardon?
On the stereo. the junction of parietal occipital and temporal bone.
Yes, now in the layman's language, where exactly is that?
Behind the left ear.
Behind the left ear. Yes. Now, would that indicate that the blow was struck by a left-handed person?
That's difficult to say. The blow had been struck directly from behind, the bruise running perpendicular. I would say it's difficult to say whether it's delivered by a right or left-handed blow.
But, doctor, we do not know yet that it was a man. Now, you will agree that from the position of the blow, it is more than likely that the blow was struck by a left-handed person.
That is possibly so, but I prefer to say it's quite uncertain.
Yes, doctor. Now, at the moment the blow was struck, would blood have been likely to got on the hand or arm that struck the blow?
Yes, certainly.
And only on that hand or arm?
Probably only on that head and arm, but it's difficult to be dogmatic.
Quite so, Dr. White. Now, would any great strength have been needed to strike such a blow?
No, from the position of the wound, no great strength would have been needed.
So, it would not necessarily have been struck by a man. A woman could do so equally well.
Certainly.
Thank you, Dr. White.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wyatt. Thank you, Dr. Wyatt. Call Janet Mckenzie.
Janet Mckenzie.
Hold on, please.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Your name is Janet Mckenzie.
Aye, that's my name.
You were companion housekeeper to the late Miss Emily French.
I was her housekeeper. I've no opinion of companions. Poor feckless bodies afraid to do a bit of honest domestic work.
Quite so, quite so. I meant only that you were held in esteem and affection by Miss French and were on friendly terms together. Not quite those of mistress and servant.
20 years I was with her and looked after her. She knew me and she trusted me. Many's the time I prevented her doing a foolish action.
Miss Mckenzie, would you please address your remarks to the jury?
Now, what sort of a person was this?
Oh, she was a warm-hearted body. A bit too warm-hearted, I'm thinking. And a bit impulsive, too. She was easily flattered, you see.
Yeah, when did you first see the prisoner, Linford?
He came to the house on mine about the end of August.
How often did he come to the house?
In the beginning, once a week. But later, it was oftener. 2 and even 3 times he'd come. He'd sit there flattering her and telling her how young she looked and noticing any new clothes she was wearing.
Yeah, quite. Now, will you tell the jury in your own words, Miss Mckenzie, previous to that?
Oh, it was in the spring it was.
Were you aware that Leonard Ball was the married man?
No, indeed, and neither was the mistress.
I object. What Miss French knew or did not know is pure conjecture on the part of Janet Mckenzie.
Let us put it this way, Miss Mckenzie. You formed the opinion that Miss French thought Leonard Ball a single man. Have you any facts to support that opinion?
Oh, well, there was a book she ordered from the library. Oh, there was The Life of Bernadette Coots and Disraeli and his wife. All books about women who married men years younger than themselves. I knew what she was thinking.
I'm afraid we can't admit that.
Why?
Members of the jury, it is possible for a woman to read The Life of Disraeli without actually contemplating marriage with a man younger than herself.
Did Mr. Ball ever mention a wife?
Never.
Thank you.
Miss Mckenzie, I'm sure we all appreciate how devoted you were to your mistress.
Aye, I was.
You had a great influence over her.
Aye, maybe.
Now, in the last will that Miss French made, that is to say, the one she made in the spring, she left the whole of her fortune to you. You weren't aware of that fact.
Aye, she told me so. Crooks, these charities, oh, crooks. Expenses here and expenses there, and the money not going to the object you leave it for. I'm giving it to you, Janet, and you can do what you think is right and just with it.
Yes, now that was an expression of great trust on her part. In her present will, I understand, she has merely left you an annuity. The main beneficiary is the prisoner, Leonard Bow.
And it would be a wicked injustice if he ever touches a penny of that money.
Now, Miss Mckenzie, you say that Miss French had not many friends or acquaintances. Now, why is that?
She did not work much.
Now, when she struck up this friendship with Mr. Bowl, it made you very sore and angry, didn't it?
I did not like seeing my dear lady imposed upon.
But you have admitted he didn't impose upon her. Perhaps what you really mean is you didn't like to see someone else supplanting you as an influence over Miss French.
She leaned on him a good deal, far more than was best, I thought.
Yes, far more than you personally liked.
Of course, I've said so. It was her good I was thinking of.
Yes. Now, returning to the night of October the 14th, you say that you heard the prisoner and Miss French talking. What did you hear them say?
Well, I did not hear exactly what they said.
You heard only the voices, the murmur of voices.
They were laughing.
You heard a man's voice and a woman's voice, and they were laughing. Is that right? I suggest that that is exactly what you did hear. A man's voice, a woman's voice, and laughter. What makes you say that the man's voice was that of Leonard Bow?
I know his voice well enough.
The door was closed, was it not?
Aye, it was closed.
You heard the murmur of voices through a closed door, and you swear that one of the voices was that of Leonard Bow. I suggest that is mere prejudice on your part.
It was Leonard Bow.
As I understand it, you passed the door twice. Once going to your room and once coming out.
Aye, that is so.
You must have been in a great hurry to get your pattern and return to your friend.
I was in no great hurry. I had the whole evening.
What I am saying is that on both occasions you walked quickly past the door.
I was there long enough to hear what I heard.
My dear Miss Mckenzie, you don't wish to suggest to the jury that you were eavesdropping.
Why, I never had better things to do with my time.
Oh, exactly. Now then, Miss Mckenzie, you are registered, of course, with the National Health Insurance.
Aye, and £1.10 I have to put out every week. It's a terrible lot of money for a working woman to pay.
Yes, a lot of people feel that way, Miss Mckenzie. Now, you recently applied for a national hearing apparatus, I believe.
6 months ago, and I've not got it yet.
Well, that means that your hearing is not very good, is that right? When I say to you, Miss Mckenzie, you could not possibly recognize a voice through a closed door. What do you answer? Did you hear what I said?
I cannot hear anyone when they mumble.
In fact, you didn't hear what I said, although I am only a few feet away from you in open court. And yet you say that behind a closed door with two people talking in ordinary conversational tones, you definitely recognize the voice of Leonard Bowl as you swept past the door on two occasions.
It was him, I tell you, it was him.
You mean you wanted it to be him? You had a preconceived notion.
Who else could it have been?
Exactly. Yes, now, if the prisoner had married Miss French, it is possible that he might have persuaded her to dismiss you.
She never would have done that, not after all these years.
You can never tell what anyone can do. Can you? Especially if they're strongly influenced by someone.
Oh, and he would have used his influence. Oh, yes, he would have done his best to make her get rid of me.
I see. You feel that the prisoner was a real menace to your present way of life at the time.
Oh, he would have changed everything.
Yes, yes, very upsetting. No wonder you feel so bitterly against the prisoner.
My learned friend has been at great pains to extract from you an admission of vindictiveness toward the prisoner.
Painless extraction, quite painless.
Did you really believe your mistress might have married the prisoner?
Indeed, I did. I just said so.
Yes, indeed you have. In your view, had the prisoner such an influence over Miss French that he could have persuaded her to dismiss you?
Well, I'd like to have seen him try. He'd not have succeeded.
Yes. Had the prisoner shown any dislike of you in any way?
No, he had his manners.
Just one more question. You say you recognized Leonard Bull's voice through that closed door. Will you tell the jury how you knew it was his?
You know a person's voice without hearing exactly what they are saying.
Thank you, Miss Mckenzie. Call Thomas Blake.
Good morning.
Thomas Blake.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Thomas Blake.
Yes, sir.
You are an assistant in the forensic laboratory at Scotland Yard.
I am.
Do you recognize that pouch?
Yes, it was given to me by Inspector Hearn and tested by me for traces of blood.
Will you tell me your findings?
Yes. The coat sleeves had been washed, though not properly pressed afterwards. But by certain tests, I am able to state that there are traces of blood on the cuffs.
Is the blood a special group or type?
Yes, it is of the blood type O.
Were you also given a sample of blood to test?
Yes, I was given a sample labeled blood of Miss Emily French. It was of the same type O.
Mr. Clay, you say that there were traces of blood on both cups.
Yes, that's right.
I suggest there were traces of blood on only one cup, the left one. Your notes?
Well, yes. It seems I've made a mistake. It's only on the left cup.
And the left sleeve was the only sleeve washed.
Yes, that's right.
Now, you are aware that the prisoner told the police that he had cut his wrist on slicing ham and that blood was on the cuff of his coat.
Yes, so I understand.
I have here a certificate stating that Leonard Bone is a blood donor at North London Hospital, and his blood type is O. That is the same group, is it not?
Yes.
So that the blood on the sleeve might equally as well come from a cut on the prisoner's wrist.
Yes, that's so.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg.
Mr. Clegg, blood group O is a very common one, is it not?
Oh, yes. Over 40% of all people have blood group O.
Call Romaine Heilger.
Romaine Heilger.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Your name is Romaine Heilger.
Yes?
You have been living as the wife of the prisoner Leonard Bull.
Yes?
Are you actually his wife?
I went to a form of marriage with him in Berlin. My former husband is still alive, so the marriage is not,
Not valid.
Really, my lord, I have the most serious objection to this witness giving testimony at all. We have the undeniable fact of marriage between this witness and the prisoner, and no proof whatsoever
married.
If my friend had not abandoned his customary patience and had waited for one more question, your lordship would have been spared further interruption. Mrs. Heilger, is this a certificate of a marriage between yourself and an Otto Gerfrey Heilger on March the 3rd, 1966?
It is.
I should like to see that certificate. It will be exhibit number 4, I think.
I believe it will be, my lord.
I think, Sir Wilfred, that this witness is competent to give evidence.
In any event, Mrs. Heilger, are you prepared to give evidence against the man you call your husband?
I'm quite prepared.
Romaine, what are you doing here? What are you saying?
Please remain silent. As your counsel will tell you, Paul, you'll shortly have an opportunity of speaking in your own defense.
Will you please tell the jury what you know regarding the events of October the 14th?
I was at home all the evening.
And Leonard Ball?
Leonard went out at 7:30.
And when did he return?
At 10:10.
That's not true. You know that's not true. It was about 25 minutes past 9 when I came home. Well, who's been making you say this? I don't understand. I don't understand.
Leonard Ball returned, you say, 10 minutes past 10. And what happened next?
He was breathing hard, very excited. He threw off his coat and examined the sleeves. Then he told me to wash the cuffs. They had blood on them.
Did he speak about the blood?
He said, "Damn it, there's blood on them."
And what did you say?
I said, "What have you done?"
What did the prisoner say to that?
He said, "I killed her."
It's not true. I tell you it's not true.
Please control
Mademoiselle,
yourself.
this is true.
Mrs. Heilger, you know what you're saying.
I am to speak the truth, am I not?
The prisoner said, "I have killed her." Do you know to whom he referred?
Oh, yes, I know. It was the old woman he had been going to see so often.
And what happened next?
He told me that I was to say he was with me all that evening. Especially, he said, I was to say he was with me at 9:30. I said to him, "Do the police know you've killed her?" And he said, "No, they will think it's a burglary." But anyway, remember, I was with you at 9:30.
And were you subsequently interrogated by the police?
Yes.
Did they ask you if Leonard Ball was with you at 9:30?
Yes.
And what did you say to that?
I said that he was.
But you have changed your story now. Why?
Because it is murder. I cannot go on lying to save him. I am grateful to him, yes. He married me and brought me to this country. What he has asked me to do always, I have done it because I was grateful.
I see. Because you loved him.
No, I never loved him.
Romaine.
I never loved him.
You were grateful to the prisoner. He brought you to this country. You asked you to give him an alibi, and at first you agreed, but later on you felt that what he had asked you to do was wrong.
Yes, that is it exactly.
Why did you feel it was wrong?
When it is murder, I cannot come into court and lie and say that he was with me at the time it was done. I cannot do it. I cannot do it.
So what did you do?
I did not know what to do. I do not know your country, and I'm afraid of the police. So I write a letter to my ambassador, and I say that I do not wish to tell any more lies. I wish to speak the truth.
That is the truth. That Leonard Ball came home that night at 10:10. That he had blood on his clothes, and that he said to you, "I have killed her." That is the truth before God.
That is the truth.
Mrs. Harrington, when you went through this form of marriage with the prisoner, was he aware that your first husband was still alive?
No.
He acted in good faith,
Yes.
and you were grateful to him.
I was grateful to him, yes.
And this is how you show your gratitude, by coming here and testifying against him?
I have to speak the truth.
Is it the truth?
Yes.
I suggest to you that on October the 14th, Leonard Ball was home with you at 9:30, the time that the murder was committed. I suggest to you that your whole story is a wicked fabrication, and for some reason you have a grudge against the prisoner, and this is your way of expressing it.
No.
You realize you are an oath?
Yes.
I warn you, Mrs. Heilger, if you care nothing for the prisoner, be careful on your own account. The penalty for perjury is heavy.
Really, my lord? I don't know if these theatrical outbursts are for the benefit of the jury, but I do most respectfully submit that there is nothing to suggest that this witness has spoken anything
Mr. Myers, this is a capital charge, and within the bounds of reason, I should like the defense to have every latitude. Yes, Sir Wilfred.
Now then, Mrs. Harrington, you say that there was blood on both cups.
Yes,
Both cups.
I have already told you. That is what Leonard said.
No, Mrs. Harrington, you said he told me to wash the cups. They had blood on them.
That is precisely my note, Sir Wilfred.
Thank you, my lord. So, what you are saying is that you washed both cups.
It is my friend's turn to be inaccurate, my lord. Nowhere has this prisoner said that she has washed both cups, or indeed that she has washed even one.
My friend is right. Yes. Now, Mrs. Freiberger, did you wash the cups?
I remember now. It was only one cup that I washed.
Thank you. Perhaps your memory as to other parts of your story is equally untrustworthy. I think that your first story to the police was that your husband had cut his wrist and the blood on his sleeve came from that cut.
Yes, I said so, but it was not true.
Why did you lie?
I said what Leonard told me to say.
Even going so far as to produce the knife with which the hand was cut.
When Leonard found he had blood on him, he cut himself to make it seem the blood was his.
I never did.
Please. So, you admit that your story was all lies. You seem to be a very good liar.
Leonard told me what to say.
The question is, were you lying then, or are you lying now? If you were really appalled that murder hadn't been committed, you could have told the truth to the police when they first questioned you.
I was afraid of Leonard.
Afraid of Leonard? Oh. The man whose heart and spirit you have just broken? I think the jury will know which of you to believe.
Romaine Hager, I ask you once more, is the evidence you have given the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is.
My lord, that is the case for the prosecution.
Romaine,
Silence.
Sir Wilfred.
My lord, members of the jury, I should not submit to you as I might that there is no case against the prisoner. There is a case of very strong circumstantial evidence. Now, you have heard the police and other expert witnesses. They have given a fair and impartial testimony, which is their duty. Against them, I have nothing to say. On the other hand, you have heard Janet Mckenzie and the woman who calls herself Romaine Bow. Can you believe that her testimony is not false? Janet Mckenzie cut out of a rich mistress's will because her position was usurped, quite unwittingly, by this unfortunate boy. Romaine Heilger, whatever she calls herself, who trapped him into marriage whilst concealing the fact that she was married already. That woman owes him more than she can ever repay. She used him to escape from political persecution, but she admits no love for him. He has served his purpose. I will ask you to be very careful how you believe the testimony of this woman. The testimony of a woman, for all we know, has been brought up to believe the pernicious doctrine that lying is a weapon to be used for one's own end. Members of the jury, I call the prisoner, Leonard Bow.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
And now then, Mr. Bow, we have all heard of your friendship with Miss French. Now, will you tell us how often you went to visit her?
Frequently.
Now, why was that?
Well, she was awfully nice to me. I got quite fond of her. She reminded me of my Aunt Betsy.
That was an aunt that brought you up.
Yes, she was a dear. Miss French reminded me of her.
Now, you have heard Janet Mckenzie say that Miss French thought that you were single and there was some question of marriage between you. Is there any truth in this?
Of course not. It's an absurd idea.
Miss French knew you were married.
Oh, yes.
So there was no question of marriage between you.
Well, I told you, she treated me like an indulgent aunt, almost like a mother.
And in return, you did everything for her that you could.
Well, I was very fond of her.
Now, Mr. Gold, you tell the jury in your own words exactly what happened on the night of October the 14th.
Well, it kind new thing of mine, and I thought it would please her, so I took it along that evening. I had nothing else to do.
What time was that?
Just before 8 I got there. I gave her the brush, and she was quite pleased. And then we tried it out on one of the cats, and it was a success. And then we played a game of Double Demon, and Miss French was very fond of Double Demon. And then I said goodnight and went home.
Now, on the way home.
So, Wilfred, I don't understand this testimony at all. What is a cat brush?
Well, it's a brush for brushing cats. It's sort of a brush and comb combined. Well, you see, Miss French kept cats, 8 of them she had, and the house smelled a bit of cat.
Yes.
Well, I thought it would be useful.
Now, did you see Janet Mckenzie?
No, Miss French let me in herself.
Did you know that it was Janet Mckenzie's night out?
Well, I didn't think about it.
Now, what time did you leave?
Just before 9, I walked home.
I see. Now, how long did that take?
Oh, I should say 20 minutes to half an hour.
So you arrived home at
I
approximately...
got home at 25 minutes past 9.
25 minutes past 9. Now, was your wife, I shall call her your wife, home then?
Yes, of course she was. I think she must have come back.
Never mind that now, Mr. Bull. Just go on with your story. Did you wash your coat when you got here?
No, of course I didn't.
But who did wash it?
Romaine did the next morning. She said I got blood on it from a cut on my wrist.
A cut on your wrist?
Well, yes, you can still see the scar here.
Yes, now, when was the first that you heard of this murder?
Well, I read about it in the evening paper the next day.
Yes, now, what happened next?
Well, I was stunned. I could hardly believe it had happened, so I went along to the police station. They said they were anxious to interview me, and so I went along and answered their questions.
You went along to the police station and made a statement?
Yes.
You were not nervous, reluctant to do so?
No, I wanted to help in any way possible.
Did you ever receive any money from this friend?
No.
Did you know that she had made a will in your favor?
Well, she was going to ring up her lawyers one day, and she said she was going to change her will. And I asked her if she often made new wills, and she said from time to time.
Now, did you know what the terms of this will were to be?
I swear I didn't.
Had she ever suggested to you that she was going to leave you anything at all in her will?
No.
Now, you have heard the testimony that your wife, or the woman you consider to be your wife,
Yes,
has given
I
out.
have.
Now, please, Mr. Ball, I realize that you are very upset. So I'm going to ask you to put emotion aside and answer this question simply and plainly. Was what the witness said true or untrue?
Of course it wasn't true.
You arrived home at 9:25 and had supper with your wife.
Yes.
Did you go out again?
No.
Are you right or left-handed?
Right-handed.
I'm going to ask you just one more question, Mr. Hall. Did you kill Miss Emily French?
No, I didn't.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Have you ever tried to get money out of anybody?
No.
How soon in your acquaintance with Miss French did you discover that she was a very wealthy woman?
Well, I didn't know she was French when I first went to see her.
But having gained that knowledge, you decided to cultivate her acquaintance further?
Well, I suppose that's what it looks like, but that had nothing to do with it. I tell you, I liked her.
Yes, you'd have gone to visit her house, no matter how poor she'd been.
Yes, I would.
You yourself had poor circumstances?
Well, you know I am.
Kindly answer the question, yes or no.
You must answer the question yes or no.
Yes.
What salary do you have?
Well, as a matter of fact, I haven't got a job at the moment. I haven't had one for some time.
You were recently discharged from your position.
No, I wasn't. I quit.
Yes, and at the time of your arrest, how much money had you in the bank?
Well, actually only a few pounds, but I was expecting some money in a week or two.
Now, how much?
Well, not very much.
I put it to you, you were pretty desperate for money.
Well, I wasn't desperate, but I felt a bit worried.
You were worried about money, you met a wealthy woman, and you courted her acquaintance assiduously.
You make it sound all twisted. I tell you, I liked her.
Yes, now, we have heard that you helped Miss French with her income tax matters.
Well, yes, you know what those forms are. You can't make head nor tail of them, or at least she couldn't.
Oh, Miss Mckenzie has told us that she was a very good businesswoman, well able to deal with That was the impression you gave her?
No, I didn't. She just, well, assumed it. I think it was wishful thinking on her part.
Yes. Now, let me ask you this. Oh, yes, she was infatuated with you.
Oh, no, she wasn't infatuated with me, but it was more like mothers are sometimes with the son.
Oh? How?
Well, they wanted to like a girl or get engaged or anything of that sort.
Now, you hoped, didn't you, for some monetary advantage from your friendship with Miss French?
Not in the way you mean.
Not in the way I mean. You seem to know what I mean better than I know myself. In what way have you hoped for monetary advantage?
Well, you see, there's this thing I've invented. It's a new kind of gadget. It's a windscreen wiper that works in snow. And I was looking for someone to finance that, and I was hoping Miss French would. But that wasn't the only reason I went to see her. I liked her.
Yes, we've heard that so many times before, haven't we? How much you like her.
Well, it's true.
Now, I believe, Mr. Bull, that about a week before Miss French's death, you were making inquiries of a travel agency for particulars of foreign cruises?
Well, supposing I was. It isn't a crime, is it?
Not at all. Plenty of people go on cruises when they can pay for it. But you couldn't pay for it, could you, Mr. Bull?
Well, I was hard up. I told you so.
And yet you went into this particular travel agency with a blonde, a strawberry blonde, I believe, and...
Strawberry blonde, Mr. Myers?
A term for a lady with reddish fair hair, my lord.
I thought I knew all there was to know about blondes, but the strawberry blonde. Go on, Mr. Myers.
Well?
Well, my wife isn't a blonde, and it was only a bit of fun anyway.
Yeah, so you admit you went in and asked for particulars, not of cheap trips, but of the most expensive and luxurious cruises. How did you expect to pay for a thing like that?
Well, I didn't.
I suggest that you knew that in a week's time, you would be inheriting a large sum of money from a trusting elderly lady.
I knew nothing of the sort. I was just feeling fed up, and there were the posters in the window, the palm trees, the coconuts and blue seas, and I just went in and asked. Well, the clerk gave me a bit of a supercilious look. Perhaps I was a bit shabby, but it riled me. So I put on a bit of an act and started asking for the strikiest tours there were, cabins on the boat decks and all that.
You really expect the jury to believe that?
I don't expect anyone to believe anything, but that's the way it was. Well, it was childish and make-believe if you wish, but it was fun and I enjoyed it. I wasn't thinking of killing anyone or inheriting any money.
So it was just a remarkable coincidence that Miss French should be killed, leaving you her hair only a few days.
I told you I didn't kill her.
Your story is that you left Miss French's house that night at 4 minutes to 9, that you walked home and arrived there at 25 minutes past 9, and that you did not go out there after.
Yes.
You have heard the woman Romaine Freiberger rebut that story in court. You have heard her say that you came home not at 25 minutes past 9, but at 10 minutes past 10, that your clothes were bloodstained, and that you definitely admitted that you had killed her.
That's not true. I tell you not the word. It is true.
Can you suggest any reason why this woman who has been passing as your wife should give evidence she has given if it were not true?
No, I can't. That's the awful thing. There's no reason for it, and I think she must have gone mad.
You think she must have gone mad? She seemed extremely sane and self-possessed. But insanity is the only reason you could suggest.
Well, I can't explain it. Oh, God, what's happened to her? What's changed her?
Very effective, I'm sure, but in this court we deal with facts. And the facts are, Mr. Bowl, that we have only your word for it, that you left Emily French's house when you say you did, and that you arrived home at 5 and 20 minutes past 9, and that you did not go out there after.
Well, someone must have seen me going into the house or in the street.
One would certainly think so, but the only one who did see you says that you came home at 10 minutes past 10, and that person said you had blood on your clothes.
I cut my wrist.
A very easy thing to do in case a question should arise.
Which was everything.
come out gasping for some fresh air when you find fog.
Not as thick as a fog would in over Mrs. Heiliger's antics.
That damn woman, from the first moment I clapped eyes on her, I scented trouble. I knew she was up to something. A thoroughly vindictive piece of goods. Much deeper than young fool in the box. What's her game, John? Tell me that.
It would seem, presumably, to get young Leonard Bowl convicted of murder.
Why? Look what he's done for her.
He's done too much for her.
Yes, she despises him for it. But, likely enough, ungrateful beast women. Yeah. But they're utterly vindictive. I mean, if she was bored with him, all she had to do was walk out. There doesn't seem to be any financial reason for her to stay with him.
I brought you your tea, Sir Wilfrid, and a cup for Mr. Matthew, too.
Tea, what we need is strong drink.
Oh, no, Sir Wilfrid, you know you like your tea, really, sir. How did it go today?
Badly.
Oh, no, sir. I do hope not, sir, because he didn't do it. I'm sure he didn't do it.
You're still sure he didn't do it. Now, why is that?
Because he's not the sort. He's ever so nice. He'd never crush an old lady on the head. But you'll get him off. Won't you, sir?
Oh, yes, I'll get him off. God knows how. Only one woman on the jury. That's a pity. I mean, women seem to like him. I can't think why. Doesn't seem to be particularly good looking. Maybe it's something to do with the maternal instinct. Women want to mother.
Whereas Mrs. Heiliger is not the maternal.
No, she's the passionate sort. Hot-blooded under that cool exterior. No doubt she's the type of woman who would knife a man and be double-crossed. God, I'd like to break her down. Show her up for what she is. Show her up for her lives.
Forgive me, Wilford, but I'm actually letting this case turn into a personal duel between you and her.
Am I? Well, perhaps I am, John, but I'm convinced she's an evil woman, and this young man's life depends on the outcome of that duel.
I don't think the jury liked her very much.
Oh, no, you're right there. I don't think they did. Well, being a foreigner, you know, they mistrust foreigners terribly. And then, I suppose she's not married to the man. She's more or less admitting to committing bigamy. And the end of it all, she's not sticking to a man when he's down. We don't like that in this country.
That's all for the good.
Yes, but it's not good enough. I mean, there was no corroboration of his statement whatsoever. I mean, he admits being with Miss French that evening. His fingerprints are all over the place, and we haven't managed to find anyone who saw him on the way home. And then there's that altogether damning matter of the will. And then, of course, that travel agent's business doesn't help. I mean, the woman leaves him money in her will, and immediately goes out getting information on luxury cruises. I mean, it couldn't be more unfortunate.
I agree. His explanation was most unconvincing.
Yes. But, you know, my wife does it.
Does what?
Oh, she gets travel agencies to make out itineraries for extensive tours for the both of us.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Yes, he works down to the last detail. Even bemoaning the fact we could both Mrs. Connections in Bermuda. We could fly and save time, but then we wouldn't see any of the country. And what do I think? And I say, makes no difference to me, my dear. Arrange it however you like. I mean, we both know it's a little game when I'm doing the same old thing, staying home.
You know, with my wife, it's houses.
Houses?
There she orders to view. I sometimes think there's hardly a house in England that's been put for sale that she hasn't been over. Oh, she plans out to apportion the rooms and works out any structural alterations that would be necessary. And she plans the curtains and the covers and the general color scheme.
Otherwise, fantasies aren't evidence worse luck. But he does have to understand why young Bo without looking for cruise information.
Pipe dream.
Yes, well, here you go.
Oh, thank you, Wilfred.
Well, I think we had a bit of luck with Janet Mckenzie.
Oh, bias, you mean?
Yes, overdoing her prejudice.
That was a very telling point you made about her deafness.
Yes. What do you think really happened that night, John? I mean, do you think it was a crime of violence after all? I mean, the police have to admit it might have been.
Well, they don't really think so, and they don't often make a mistake. That inspector is convinced it was an inside job.
Well, he could be wrong.
I wonder.
Yes, but if so, who was it that Janet Mckenzie heard talking to Miss French at 9:30? Seems to me there are two answers to that story. speaking, but she made the whole thing up when she discovered that the police didn't really think it was a burglary.
Oh, surely she wouldn't do a thing like that.
But what happened then? Don't tell me it was a burglar amicably chatting with Miss French before he caught her on the head, you old clown.
That seems most unlikely.
Yes, I should say so. I don't think that grim woman would stick at making up a thing like that. I don't think she'd stick at anything, you know?
Surely you don't know.
Yes, Governor?
Excuse me, Sir Wilfrid, but there's a young woman outside asking to see you, and she says it has something to do with the case of Leonard Bowl.
Mental case?
Oh, no, sir. I can always tell that type.
What sort of a woman?
Well, she's a rather common young woman, sir, with a rather free way of speaking.
Well, what does she want?
Well, she says that she knows something that might do the prisoner a bit of good.
Hardly likely, but sure is.
Yes, sir.
What do you think, John?
We cannot afford to leave any stone unturned.
I suppose you're right.
The woman, sir.
Here, what's this? Toya? I'm not talking to Toya.
Just a moment, madam. This is Mr. Mayhew, is Leonard Bull's solicitor, and I'm Sir Wilfrid Roberts, counsel for the defense.
Oh, so you're dear. I didn't recognize you without your wig. Lovely you're looking them wigs. Having a bit of a confab, are ya? Well, maybe I can help ya, if you make it worth my while.
Well, you know, Miss...
Oh, no need for names. If I did give you a name, it mightn't be the right one, might it?
As you please. You realize, of course, you are duty bound to come forward with any evidence that may be in your possession.
Ah, come on. I didn't say I knew anything, did I? I've got something that's more to the point.
What is it you've got, madam?
I was outside the court today. I know that cannot give up evidence, so I mighty about it too. She's a wicked one, a Jezebel, that's what she is.
Quite so, but as to this special information that you have,
But what's in it for me? It's valuable what I've got. 200 quid, that's what I want.
Oh, I'm afraid we could not count on anything of that nature. However, if you will tell us a bit more about this information, we shall be able to know what to...
You don't buy unless you get a butcher's, is that it?
a butcher's?
A butcher's, look,
Oh, yes.
I've got the goods on her, all right. It's letters, that's what it is, letters.
Letters from Romaine Bowl to the prisoner.
Tell the prisoner, don't make me laugh. Poor ruddy prisoner, he's been took in by her, all right. I've got something to sell, dear, and don't you forget it.
If you will let us see these letters, we shall be able to advise you as to how pertinent they may be.
Putting it in your language, aren't ya? Well, as I say, I don't expect you to buy without seeing, but fair is fair. If these letters will do the trick, if they'll get the boy on, put the foreign bitch where she belongs, well, it's 200 quid for me, right?
If these letters contain information useful to the defense, I'm prepared to offer, to help your expenses in coming here, I'm prepared to offer 20 pounds.
20 bloody quid for letters like these! Think again!
Miss, if you do have any evidence in there, in those letters that will help to clear my client, I would think that possibly 20 pounds would not be an unreasonable sum to pay for your expense.
100 quid, and it's a bargain. That's if you're satisfied with the letters.
40 pounds.
All right, blast ya. Here, take quite a packet of them, too. The top one's the one who'll do the trick.
This is her handwriting, I suppose.
Oh, it's her handwriting.
trust you for the moment. Incredible, quite incredible.
Cold-blooded, vindictiveness.
How did you get hold of these?
That should be telling.
What have you got against Romaine?
Say that!
She do that to you?
Not a chap is going with. Going with him steady, I was told. He was a bit younger than me, but he was fond of me and I loved him. And then she came along. She took a fancy to him. She got him away from me. She started to see him on the sly. And then one day he cleared out. I knew where he'd gone and attacked her. And I found them there together. I told her what I thought of her. And he set on me. In with one of the razor blades he was. Oh, he cut my face proper. There, he says, no man will ever look at you now.
Did you go to the police about this?
Me? Not likely. Besides, it wasn't his fault. Not really. It was hers. All hers. Getting him away from me like that. Turning him against me. Oh, but I waited my time. I followed her about and watched her. I know some of the things she's been up to. I know where the blood is that she goes to see on the sly sometimes. That's how I got hold of them letters. So, now you know the whole story, mister. Want to kiss me, ducky? I don't blame you.
I am sorry. I'm deeply sorry. You got a tenor job. We'll make it another £10.
Out and out on me, will ya? Willing to go up another 10 quid? Oh, I know I was being too soft with you. Those letters are the goods, aren't they?
I think they would be very helpful. But would you look at that one, John? This one, too.
We'll get a Harrington expert. He can give testimony if necessary.
Yes, we shall require this man's surname and address.
Oh, where was she gone?
Oh.
She must have leave without giving us further particulars.
Carter.
Yes, Sir Wilfred. Well, she went straight out, sir.
Well, you shouldn't have let her go. Send Peter after her.
Yes, Sir Wilfred.
She gone?
Yes, I sent Peter after her, but open this form. Dad, we must have this man's surname and address.
Oh, we won't get it. She's thought this thing out too carefully. She wouldn't give us her name. Slipped away like an eagle as soon as she saw we were busy with the letters. Oh, she's damn miscomputing in the witness box. Look what that man did to her the last time.
Yes, well, she had protection.
From what? How long? He get her in the end. Or his pal. No. She's already risked something in coming here. Besides, she doesn't want to bring the man into it. It's Romaine Heilberg she's after.
Yes, and what a beauty our Romaine is. But now at last we've got something to go on. I think the procedure should be that we've
Stand up. All persons who have anything further to do before my Lady the Queen's Justices of Oyer and Termina and General Jail Delivery for the jurisdiction of the Central Criminal Court, draw near and give your attendance. God save the Queen.
God save the Queen. My lord, since court was adjourned last evening, certain evidence of a startling character has come into my hands. Now, this evidence is such that I'm taking it upon myself to ask your lord lordship's permission to have the last witness for the prosecution, Romaine Heilger, recalled.
When exactly, Sir Wilfred, did this evidence come to your knowledge?
It was brought to me, my lord, last night after court was adjourned.
My lord, I must object to my learned friend's request. The case for the prosecution is closed and...
Mr. Myers, I had not intended to rule on this question without first observing the customary formality of inviting your observations on the matter. Yes, Sir Wilfred.
My lord, when evidence vital to the prisoner comes into the hands of his legal advisors at any time before the jury has returned their verdict, I contend that it is not only admissible but desirable. Happily, there is a clear case to support my position, as in the case of the King against Stillman in 1926 on page 463.
You really bother to cite the authority, Sir Wilfred. I'm quite familiar with it. I should like to hear from the prosecution, Mr. Myers.
In my respectful submission, my lord, the course my friend proposes is, save in exceptional circumstances, quite unprecedented. And what is the startling new evidence of which Sir Wilfred speaks?
Letters from Romaine Heilger.
I should like to see those letters to which you refer, Sir Wilfred.
My friend was good enough to tell me, only as we came into court, that he intended to make this submission, so I've had no time to examine the authorities. However, I seem to remember a case in 1977, the Queen versus Porter, I believe.
No, Mr. Myers, it was the Queen versus Potter, and it was reported in 1978. I appeared for the prosecution.
Yes, and if memory serves me correctly, your lordship's similar objection was sustained.
For once, Mr. Myers, your memory serves you ill. My objection was then overruled by Mr. Justice Swindon, as yours is now by me.
I call Romaine Heilger.
If these letters are authentic, it raises very serious issues.
Romaine Heilger.
Now then, Mrs. Heilger, you appreciate that you are still on oath?
Yes?
Now then, I have some letters here. Do you know a man whose Christian name is Max?
Oh, I don't know what you mean.
And yet it is a very simple question. Do you or do you not know a man called Max?
Certainly not.
You're quite sure of that?
I have never known anyone called Max, never.
And yet it is quite a common Christian name or contraction of a name in your country.
Oh.
You mean that you have never known anyone by the name of Max?
Yes, perhaps in Germany. I do not remember. It was a long time ago.
Well, I should not ask you to throw your mind back as far as all that. A few weeks shall suffice. Let us say October 17th last.
What have you got there?
I have a letter written on October the 17th. Perhaps you remember that date?
Not particularly. Why?
I suggested on that date you wrote a certain letter to address to a man called Max.
I never did anything of the kind. These are lies that you are telling. I don't know what you mean.
This letter is one of a series written over a considerable period of time to the same man.
Lies, all lies.
And you seem to have been on very intimate terms with this man.
How dare you say a thing like that? It isn't true.
The prisoner in his own interest will remain silent.
I am not interested in the general trend of this correspondence, just one particular letter. My beloved Max, an extraordinary thing has happened. I believe that all of our difficulties may be ended.
It's a lie. I never wrote it. How did you get hold of that letter? Who gave it to you?
How this letter came into my possession is irrelevant.
You stole it. You are a thief as well as a liar. Or did some woman give it to you? Yes, I am right, am I not?
Kindly confine yourself to answering counsel's question.
But I will not listen.
Proceed, Sir Wilfred.
You have only heard the opening phrases of this letter. Am I to understand that you definitely deny writing it?
Of course I never wrote it. It's a forgery. It's an outrage, and I should be forced to listen to a pack of lies. Lies made up by a jealous woman.
I suggest that it is you who have lied. You have lied flagrantly and persistently in this court and under oath. And the reason that you have lied is clearly indicated by this letter written down by you in black and white.
You are crazy. Why should I write down a lot of nonsense?
Because a way had opened to you to freedom. And in planning to take that way, the fact that an innocent man would go to his death meant nothing to you. of how you yourself managed to accidentally wound Leonard Ball with a ham knife.
I never wrote that. I wrote that he did it himself, cutting the hand.
So you know it is in the letter before I have read it.
Damn you!
Don't bully her.
Let me get out of here, let me go.
Sir Wilfred, you will read the letter for the benefit of the jury.
My beloved Max, an extraordinary thing has happened. I believe that all of our difficulties may be ended. I can now come to you without endangering the valuable work which you are doing in this country. The old lady I told you about has been murdered, and I think that Leonard is suspected. He was over there earlier that evening, and his fingerprints will be all over the place. The time seems to be 9:30. Leonard was home with me by then, but his alibi depends on me. On me. Supposing I say that he came home much later, and he had blood on his clothes. He did have blood on his sleeve because he had cut his wrist at dinner. So you see, it all fits in. I could say he told me he killed her. Beloved Max, please tell me I can go ahead. It would be so wonderful to be free of playing the loving, grateful wife. I know the cause and the party come first. But if Leonard were convicted of murder, I could come to you safely, and we could be together for always. Your adoring Romaine.
Romaine Heilger, will you return to the witness box? You have heard the letter read. What have you to say?
Nothing.
Romaine, tell me you didn't write it. I know you didn't write it.
Of course I wrote it.
That, my lord, concludes the case for the defense.
Sir Wilfred, have you any evidence as to whom these letters were addressed?
They came into my hands anonymously, my lord, and as yet we have had no time to ascertain any further facts. Evidently, he came to this country illegally.
You will never know who he is. Never. I don't care what you do to me. You shall never know.
Mr. Myers, do you wish to re-examine?
Really, my lord, I find it somewhat difficult in view of these startling developments. Mrs. Helga, you are, I think, of a highly nervous temperament. Being a foreigner, you may not understand or appreciate the responsibilities that lie upon you when you take the oath in an English court of law. If you have been intimidated into admitting something that is not true, if you've been forced to write a letter, if you wrote a letter in some spirit of make-believe, please do not hesitate to say so now.
Must you go on and on torturing me? I wrote the letter. Now let me go.
My lord, I submit that this witness is in such a state of agitation she hardly knows what she is saying or admitting.
Mr. Myers, as you recall, Sir Wilfred cautioned the witness at the time of her previous statement and impressed upon her the sacred nature of the oath she had taken.
Yes, my lord.
Romaine Heilger, I wish to warn you that this is not the end of the matter. You cannot commit perjury in this country without being brought to account for it. And I may add, I have no doubt the proceedings for perjury will shortly be taken against you. The penalty for perjury can be severe. You may stand down. Sir Wilfred, will you please address the jury on behalf of the defense?
Members of the jury, when the truth is clearly evident, it speaks for itself. No words of mine, I'm sure, could add to the impression made upon you by the straightforward story told by the prisoner, and the very wicked attempt to incriminate him, evidence of which you have just witnessed.
Well, stand up. The members of the jury have agreed upon a verdict. They find the prisoner
are hereby discharged and are free to leave the court.
All rise. All persons who have anything further to do before my Lady the Queen's Justices of Oyer and Termina and General Jail Delivery for the jurisdiction of the Central Criminal Court may depart hence and give your attendance again tomorrow morning at 10:30 o'clock. God save the Queen.
God save the Queen.
Congratulations, my boy. Oh, listen to the man you've got to thank.
Thank you, sir. You've got me out of a very nasty mess.
Nasty mess, you hear that, John? My troubles are over now, my boy.
It was a never thing, you know.
Yes, I suppose it was.
We hadn't been able to break that woman down.
Yes, but did you have to go for her the way you did? I mean, it was awful
Listen
the way
here,
you broke
Paul.
it
You're
down.
not the first young man who's been so crazy for a woman that you were blinded to what she was really like. You know, she did the best she could to put a rope around her.
And don't you forget that.
Yes, I suppose she did, but why? That's what I can't figure out. I mean, she always seemed so devoted to me. I could have sworn she loved me. And yet all the time she was going with this other fellow. There's something that I don't quite understand.
Been waiting here, man. Craig's in a nasty mood. I'd let them disperse before I try.
No, you don't.
Are you protecting Leonard? Really, there's no need.
You've done enough harm.
Mayn't I even congratulate Leonard on being free?
No thanks to you.
And rich?
Rich?
Oh, yes, I think, Mr. Bull, you will certainly come into a great deal of money.
Money doesn't seem to matter much. Not much after what I've been through. Romaine, I don't understand.
Leonard,
No.
tell me, do those words the judge said mean that I shall go to prison?
Well, you certainly will be charged with perjury and tried for it. You will probably go to prison.
Romaine, don't worry. I'm sure everything will work out in the end.
Well, you never see sense, Bull. We must discuss practicality. This matter of probate.
It may interest you to know that I took your measure the first time we met. I made up my mind then to beat you at your little game, and by God, I've done it in spite of you.
In spite of me?
And you don't deny you did everything in your power to hang him.
Would they have believed me if I had said he was with me that evening and should not go out? Would they?
Why not?
Because they would have said to themselves, this woman loves this man. She would say or do anything for him. Oh, they would have had sympathy with me, yes, but they would not have believed me.
If you told the truth, they would.
I wonder. I did not want their sympathy. I wanted them to dislike me, to mistrust me, to be convinced that I was alive. And then, when my lies were broken down, then they believed. So, now you know the whole story, mister. Want to kiss me, Ducky?
My God.
Yes, the woman with the letters. I wrote those letters. I brought them to you. I was that woman. It wasn't you who won freedom for Leonard. It was I. And because of it, I shall go to prison. But at the end of it, Leonard and I will be together again. Happy, loving each other.
But couldn't you trust me, my dear? I mean, we believe, you know, that our British system of justice upholds the truth. We'd have got him all.
I couldn't risk it. You see, you thought he was innocent.
Yes, and you knew he was innocent. I understand.
But you do not understand at all. I knew he was guilty.
Aren't you afraid?
Afraid?
Afraid of linking your life to a murderer?
You don't understand. We love each other.
The first time we met, I said you were a very remarkable woman. I see no reason to change my opinion.
No good going in there, miss. It's all over.
Oh, Len, you're free. They've been trying to keep me out, darling. It's been awful. I've been nearly crazy.
Leonard, who is this girl?
I'm Len's girl, and I know all about you. You're not his wife. Never have been. You're years older than him, and you just got a hold of him, and you've done your best to hang him. But that's all over
I shall not be tried as an accessory.